1895. The location, Sheridan, Wyoming, which is located in north central Wyoming. John will be impersonating George Beck, an entrepreneur and rancher. Listen to the story of George's tale of establishing the Cody Canal and the city of Cody. Help me welcome John Barnes with George Beck.
My ranch is located west of Sheridan. It is nestled up against the base of the Bighorn Mountains. During the summertime, I go up onto the top of the Bighorn Mountains to do prospecting. And I noted when I was on the west side of the Bighorn Mountains that I could look across a broad basin. And over on the west side of the basin, there was a range of mountains that just abruptly ended. I had a friend who had been over there. He came back and told me that there was a nice flat shoulder on the south side of that mountain that was susceptible to irrigation. During the summer, I sent a couple of ranch hands over to look at that area and to report back to me. And they came back in the fall and they reported that in fact that shoulder did exist and that there was a good river above that could be tapped for irrigation water and that there was plenty of land there to irrigate. So during the winter, I talked to my group of investors and we agreed that it would be time to go over and see about establishing an area where we could develop irrigation. One of the things that happened is that my group of investors didn't include William F. Cody. You may all commonly know him as Buffalo Bill. And he wanted to be involved with the group of investors. And after a lot of discussion, we decided that we would bring him into the group because of his notoriety, and we could use him as part of our advertising for this irrigation project. In the spring of 1896, we left Sheridan, Wyoming in a group of covered wagons to head over to this area to take a look at it. We had to go south to Buffalo, Wyoming, and in Buffalo we met Elwood Mead, who was the state engineer, and I invited him to come along as we went up to take a look at this potential irrigated area. We had to wait until later in the spring so that the snow was off the mountain so we could make the trip over the mountain, which we did, and we ended up at the Bighorn River. The river was swollen because of spring runoff. And that night, as we were sitting around the campfire, we decided that we were going to have to send the wagons down the east side of the river to where the Stinking Water River joined the Bighorn River, because there was a ferry there that could ferry the wagons and the horses across the swollen river. But that night, we drank a little bit of whiskey, and we decided we were going to have a race down the river, that we were going to build rafts and race down the river to see who could get there first. And we all pulled out $10 and chipped in. And the next morning we paired up and we began to build our rafts. And after the rafts were built, we were ready to launch. And my partner and I on our launch carried only a keg of whiskey and an axe, because we thought that we would be down to the ferry in very short order. As we began to go, we began to run into piles of driftwood, and the raft would get stuck. With the axe, we were able to get out of the first two that we got stuck in. But when we hit the third, the raft tipped over in underneath the driftwood. We were lucky to get out with just our lives, but we lost our keg of whiskey and also our axe. And we were on the west side of the river, and we walked down, and we got hungry. We had been walking for 2 days when we finally found an old cabin, and inside the cabin we found a jar of sugar with dust on the top, and we scraped off the dust and ate the sugar. The next day we found another cabin, and the gentleman living in the cabin had shot an antelope, and we were able to get some meat to eat. And we finally made it down to the ferry. A couple of days later, the wagons came. We actually made it up to the area and decided that there was an area there that could be irrigated. And we spent the summer, we set up our camp, spent the summer, and we surveyed in the canal and laid out all of the irrigated lands. As part of that process, we also decided it was time to establish a town, and we put a monument in the ground, and we filled out the paperwork to go to the postmaster in Washington, D.C. to get the town established. Little did I know when I sent that paperwork in that Buffalo Bill had sent his